With Pantheon fast approaching, along with the gear update to raid and dungeons, you need a build that will allow you to take on those activities without struggling more than necessary. If you're new to Destiny or don't really play many raids or dungeons, or if you're a free-to-play player, then this video is especially for you. I have created 3 builds, one for each class, that you can take into any raid or dungeon and find moderate success. I followed 3 very simple rules when designing these builds. 1. They must be free-to-play accessible, so no DLC weapons or exotics. 2. They cannot use any gear that is no longer obtainable in the game. And 3. There cannot be any loadout swapping, so builds must be versatile for every part of an encounter. With those rules in place, the gear and options we have available to us is somewhat limited. That won't stop us from creating builds that can stand by themselves in raids and dungeons though. Just don't expect to be on top of the leaderboard for damage, and be ready when you come across an encounter that these builds may not work in. These builds are good and get the job done, but there are better builds out there, but really only when you invest in Destiny and its paid content. Now, all exotic armors featured in this video can be obtained from Rahul in the tower, and to save you time, we won't be going over mod selection for your armor, as it will be pretty much the same for every class. I'll be supplying both dim and mobilitic links, so anything I don't cover will be featured there, along with any extra information that will help you. I've rambled enough, so we're going to jump straight into the builds, starting with Titan. This build utilizes the Peacekeeper exotic along with the Arc subclass to dish out large amounts of damage without needing to worry about our ammo economy. Due to the current sandbox, rapid-fire weapons are amazing at generating super energy on hits, so we can very quickly get another super to use during a damage phase, which will be critical for securing an encounter completion in as few damage phases as possible. So, how does Peacekeepers work? This exotic allows us to boost the damage of our SMGs as long as we keep sustained damage on a target. Stowing your SMG, so swapping to a different weapon, will auto-reload your SMG as well. This exotic works very similar to the perk Target Lock, so the damage boost is minimal to begin with, but it very quickly ramps up. This will be the primary way in which we deal damage to bosses. We'll be utilizing the Storm's Keep aspect from the Arc Titan subclass to boost our damage even more. This will gradually grant bulk charge to you and allies behind the barricade, and you can then discharge the bulk charge at max stacks using your weapons. That's extra damage for the entire team, and since you're limited to what you can bring if you're a free-to-play player, you want to bring as much value as you possibly can. We'll speak more about the subclass in a moment, but first let's talk about the weapons, starting with the SMG. The Prolonged Engagement will be our SMG of choice, and it can be purchased from Zavala in the tower. It is a stasis 900 RPM Vice weapon, meaning we can make use of the origin trait, Viced Stinger. Damaging an enemy has a small chance to reload the magazine, specifically 25% of the base magazine. Due to Peacekeepers working on sustained damage, and we want Viced Stinger to activate as often as possible, we need a roll on our SMG that will allow us to keep shooting for a long duration. Our desired perks will be 4th times the charm and Target Lock. For your barrel, magazine and masterwork, aim for increasing your range as much as possible, then look at increasing your magazine size. Now we won't be able to shoot infinitely with our SMG. At one point, we will need to reload. Remember that stowing our SMG will automatically reload it, so we want a weapon to swap off to, and since we're swapping to a different weapon, it makes sense to shoot it at least once. For that, we'll be running an area denial grenade launcher, specifically Motif 1, which you can get from the portal. For your perks, go auto-loading holster with either attrition orbs or vorpal weapon, then get your handling as high as possible. Our damage rotation does not include a power weapon, meaning we have 2 ways we can go here. The first is that we run a machine gun to use during the mechanics phase of an encounter. The artifact has a lot of synergy with arc weapons, so ideally we want an arc machine gun. Your best bet for that is to go to the Exotic Archive or Monument to Lost Lights in the tower, open Legacy Gear, and then head over to the 3rd page and purchase the 21% Delirium. It does have a pretty steep price of 75,000 Glimmer, but this is the most accessible option, and the perks are honestly pretty good. Now, the other option is that you run Tractor Cannon, an exotic which applies a 30% weaken to enemies. It doesn't really do any damage, so its role is strictly weakening bosses. Someone in your raid team will be running Tractor Cannon, so it may make the most sense for you to run this. If you don't have the exotic already, then go to the Cosmodrome and pick up Maeve's Key from Shorhan. Go inside the building directly under where you spawn, and open the chest, and it will give you the exotic. So we've covered the weapons, and we're now going to go over the subclass before finally going over the damage rotation in detail. For your super, Thunder Crash is the only option we've got for boss damage. Rally Barricade is required for Storm's Keep, and it's really the best barricade anyway, as it reduces splash damage and increases a bunch of your weapon stats like reload speed, stability, and range. Pick whatever melee you want, as melee is the least important part of this build. For your grenade, go for Storm Grenade, as from my testing it has the best damage as well as general utility. For your aspects, we already know one of them, that being Storm's Keep, which again grants bulk charge while you're behind it, which you can discharge using your weapons. Our other aspect is Touch of Thunder, which adds additional effects to various grenades. We're using the Storm Grenade, so this aspect will create a roaming thundercloud when we use our grenade, giving us some extra damage. For your fragments, go Resistance for more damage resistance while nearby combatants, Magnitude so our grenade has a longer duration, Frequency so we gain more stacks of bulk charge while amplified, and then Volts so finishes make us amplified and grants us bulk charge. For your stats, go 100 super and then 100 class ability, so you have your barricade ready to place as soon as your current one ends. Then you want above 100 in weapon stat to boost the damage of our SMG against bosses, and then the rest into grenade. Melee again isn't important here, so we don't care about the melee stat. If you're struggling with your stats, ensure you have at least 100 in super and class at the bare minimum. So those are the weapons, subclass and stats needed for this build. All that remains is to go over the damage rotation to ensure you know what to do. So the damage rotation works like so. Right before the damage phase, place your rally barricade. At the start of the damage phase, activate your Thunder Crash and land on the boss. Ensure you're behind your barricade and begin firing at the boss with your SMG. When you begin to get low on ammo, swap over to your grenade launcher, shoot it, and then swap back. Your SMG will be reloaded, and then you can go again. We have 100 in our class stat, so when your barricade runs out, place another one as you'll have it back in time. Use your Thunder Crash whenever you get it, and that's the damage rotation. It's super simple, super efficient on ammo, and you can very easily improve it as you get access to better weapons. Now next up is Hunter. This build utilizes the Lucky Pants exotic, which will increase the damage of our hand cannons. We'll be pairing it with the Solar subclass, as we'll be able to recharge our Golden Gun super very fast, as well as it having access to various abilities that work alongside our damage rotation. Lucky Pants works like so. After swapping to a hand cannon, you'll have 6 seconds to deal damage with it. Each hit will increase the damage up to 450%, and once the timer is up, you'll have to wait 10 seconds to reactivate the effect. The key part of this exotic that you must remember is that the effect only works when you swap to a hand cannon. If you swap to your hand cannon but don't damage an enemy, you won't get the cooldown, but you will have to swap off and then swap back to restart the timer. Since we're using Lucky Pants, we obviously need a hand cannon. Now typically, heavy burst hand cannons are the best for Lucky Pants, or alternatively the special hand cannon from the newest DLC. Unfortunately, all of those options are really not accessible or they're locked behind DLC. This leaves all but one choice: Malfeasance, an exotic kinetic hand cannon. Luckily for us, this is a quest exotic which you can get from the Drifter in the tower. The quest is a little lengthy, but you'll be able to get it no problem. Malfeasance is a very simple exotic. Every shot attaches a slug, and they detonate every 5 slugs. You have 20 shots in your magazine, so that's 4 detonations. That's a lot of damage, as well as super energy. The Malfeasance Catalyst also gets Vorpal Weapon, so make sure to keep an eye out for that, as it will increase your damage by 20% against bosses. Since we'll have a 10-second cooldown on Lucky Pants, we need other weapons to use in the downtime. We'll be using Psi Eterna IV, an Arc Micro-Missile Pulse Rifle, and Wicked Sister, a Strand Adaptive Grenade Launcher. For the Pulse, which you can get from the portal, you want Blast Distributor and Elemental Honing. For the Grenade Launcher, ensure you have Bait and Switch, or at the bare minimum, Explosive Light, and then that's all you really need. Now looking at our subclass, we are of course on the Solar subclass. Our super will be Marksman Golden Gun, and as it's classed as a roaming super, it allows us to recharge it at a very fast rate compared to one and done supers like Blade Barrage. For your class ability, Marksman Dodge will be our go-to, as it allows us to bypass the need to reload any of our weapons, and it also collects nearby ammo, which can be very beneficial during a damage phase. Knife Trick is really the only option here for your melee, and Healing Grenade is always great for survivability. Looking at our aspects, we've got Knock 'em Down, which we're specifically using for the ability to refund our melee in full when we get a powered melee kill while radiant. Our other aspect is On Your Mark. When you dodge or get a precision hit, you and nearby allies gain a stack of On Your Mark, up to 10, which increases your reload speed and grants you bonus weapon stat up to 50. This is why it will be important to ensure you have at least 100 weapon stat so that you gain bonus damage to your weapons. Fragment wise, you want Mercy to gain restoration when picking up fire sprites, Searing so we generate fire sprites when defeating enemies with our melee, Empyrean so we can extend our restoration with melee final blows, Benevolence so when we apply restoration, cure or radiant to allies, we'll gain an increase to our ability regeneration speed. and then finally torches, so we can become radiant and make others radiant when we get hits with our melee, which in turn allows us to refund our melee through knock him down, as well as activate benevolence if anybody is nearby. Looking at your stats, you'll need at least 85 in class for a reason I'll disclose in a moment, then 100 in super and weapon, then just get as much into grenade and melee as possible. Knock 'em down will refund our melee in full when we get melee final blows, so we don't need too much in melee, but the only thing to consider is that if you miss your melee, or don't get a melee final blow with it, you will have to wait a reasonable time for it to come back, though we do have benevolence to make that go a little quicker. All that remains now is our damage rotation. Like with all damage rotations, you'll start by using your gun, but before that, make sure you have radiant for extra damage, and make sure you're on a weapon other than your hand cannon. After using your super, swap to your hand cannon and empty the magazine completely. By the end of the magazine, you have run out of the Lucky Pants effect. You'll want to then dodge to reload your hand cannon, and then swap to your arc pulse rifle. Shoot 4 shots and then swap to your grenade launcher and empty it completely. You'll then swap to your hand cannon because by then the cooldown on Lucky Pants will be over and you'll repeat the rotation. Whenever you get your super, first finish shooting your current weapon and then use your super before returning to the rotation. This is just to make it easier for you to return to the rotation without getting confused on where you were. After the third full rotation, you'll be towards the end of your pulse and grenade launcher ammo, so just empty them and then stick to your hand cannon, remembering to swap off so you can reactivate Lucky Pants. And that is the Hunter damage rotation. All that remains now is Warlock, and it is much simpler than Titan and Hunter. Just like with Hunter, we'll be using the Solar subclass for Warlock. Unfortunately, most Warlocks in raids are forced to run Well of Radiance. I want to set you up for success, so we have to be realistic here. You're probably going to be stuck on Well of Radiance for your super, so we'll be running Sanguine Alchemy to ensure we're doing the most damage possible even without a damaged super. The exotic works like so. While standing in a rift, you can damage a target to mark it. Marked targets take increased damage, and if you use a weapon that matches the element of your equipped super, which is solar, you gain a damage boost which is equivalent to having 4 surge mods on your leg. If you didn't know, you can only equip 3 surge mods on your legs, so you're getting a lot out of this exotic. What it also means is that you can actually double dip on surges. Since you don't need to run solar surges, you can instead run surges to match another weapon, which is really good because typically you run 2 weapons of the same element so that you can surge match. So what weapons are we using? Because Sanguine gives us a substantial boost to our solar weapons, we obviously need to use a solar weapon, otherwise there's no point to using the exotic. So with that in mind, we have 2 solar weapons as possible options: Sleeper Simulant and Whisper of the Worm. Sleeper Simulant is a linear fusion rifle that you can purge from the exotic archive in the tower. It can overpenetrate and ricochet, but other than the fact that it has high body shot damage, there is nothing else to this weapon. That's not a bad thing though, because it works anywhere and everywhere. Whisper of the Worm on the other hand does have some stipulations on when and where you can use it. Obtaining it is also a little more complicated than with Sleeper, as you'll have to complete the Whisper mission in Pinnacle Ops in the portal to obtain it, and then you have to do repeat runs on harder difficulties to obtain all the catalysts, as one of them, box breathing, is baseline required. Using this weapon is simple: shoot the gun and hit your crits. If you hit all 3 crits in reasonably quick succession, your gun refunds 1 ammo and reloads 2 from your reserves, allowing you to continue shooting. With the box breathing catalyst, aim down sight before shooting and wait until the perk appears on the bottom left. When this is active, it will grant bonus precision damage, but only while you're zoomed in. If you zoom out or stop firing, you'll have to reactivate it. So how do you know when to use Sleeper or Whisper? Well, Whisper of the Worm deals more damage than Sleeper, but that's only when a boss has an easily hittable crit spot, and if you can continue shooting without interruption. If you shoot and then stop because maybe the boss is teleporting, then you'll have to manually reload and reactivate box breathing, which takes away time that can be spent damaging. So those are the 2 power weapons for this build, but now we need a backup option for situations where the damage phase is long enough to run out of ammo. For that, our backup option will be something from the portal, an aggressive kinetic sniper rifle which will be running with triple tap and kinetic tremors. While it can get elemental honing in place of kinetic tremors, which in most cases is preferred, it is not preferred here. Our other weapons will be solar, including our subclass, so elemental honing will be stuck at 1 stack, which doesn't result in more damage than kinetic tremors. We've also got a few artifact mods that pair very nicely with something: kinetic synthesis to generate ammo, reload at range to increase our reload speed, and sniper's mediation to increase our damage. Our final weapon, which will be in the energy slot, is really entirely up to you as long as it's solar to make use of Sanguine Alchemy. Range is somewhat important though, so my suggestion is the Oxygen SR3 Scout Rifle from Pinnacle Ops with shoot to loot to collect ammo during a damage phase, as well as one for all for extra damage during the mechanics phase. With the weapons out of the way, and like with the other two builds, all that remains now is for us to go over the subclass before finally the damage rotation. Since we're using Sanguine Alchemy, Well of Radiance is a requirement, and like I said, typically if you're on Warlock, you'll be relegated to running that super anyway. To make the most of our exotic, we'll be running Healing Rift, not only to provide us healing, but also allow us to use Sanguine without needing to use our super. For your melee, Celestial Fire will be best as it has superior range, and Healing Grenade is always great for survivability. Now, aspect-wise, we've got nothing too crazy. We've got Helion, so when we use our class ability, we summon a Solar Mortar that launches projectiles which scorch upon impact. Those projectiles also scale with Grenade stat, but not the Scorch. Then we've got Touch of Flame, which provides enhanced functionality to 3 of our grenades. We're using the Healing Grenade, so the cure and restoration it applies will now be at ×2 instead of ×1. For your fragments, we're going for Ember of Singeing so we can get our class ability back faster when we scorch targets, which we will be thanks to Helion, so there's a nice little loop there. Benevolence, so we can get abilities back faster when we apply Cure, Restoration and Radiant, and if you didn't know, our Healing Rift can activate this as well. We'll be taking Solace, so the restoration from our Healing Grenade is extended, and Empyrean, so our solar weapon or ability Final Blows extend the duration of Restoration and Radiant. This does not work with Helion, so we're only going to be extending it with our Scout Rifle. Looking at our stats, we want our super stat to be as high as possible. That is because Well of Radiance is the only super to last longer depending on your super stat. After that, you want your class stat to be preferably at 100, but if that's not possible, then just aim for 70. Finally, get your grenade stat as high as possible, as of course it will reduce your healing grenade cooldown, and if it's above 100, then it will buff the impact damage from Helion. All that remains now is our damage rotation. Use your super, and then use your class ability to activate Helion. Then empty Sleeper or Whisper depending on the encounter. If you have ammo in the distance, use your Scout Rifle, which as a reminder should have shoot to loot, to shoot and pick it up. Otherwise, swap to something something until it's empty. The good thing about having something something as a backup is that it is a kinetic weapon. As we discussed before, it has synergy with our artifact mods, specifically Kinetic Synthesis, which after a full magazine will have generated 2 kinetic ammo bricks, which have 2 ammo each. While it won't infinitely regenerate ammo, you will be able to continue firing even after emptying the gun. Warlock is definitely the simplest build out of the 3 classes, but it still dishes out a decent amount of damage, and luckily people tend not to expect too much damage from Warlocks on Well of Radiance, so don't worry too much. So with Warlock out of the way, we've now gone through each class. As a reminder, these are not the best builds out there because we've limited ourselves to ensure that anybody can pick these builds up. That was the goal of this video, to provide a starting point so players can jump straight into a raid or dungeon with minimal time investment. Dim and Mobalytic links will be in the description for each class, and the Mobalytics page will go over a few things in more detail, such as alternative guns and the armor mods, which are mostly the same for each class, just with some slight changes. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, I would greatly appreciate it if you could subscribe, or even just a like on the video helps out. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments and I'll answer them, or possibly do a follow-up video if needed. As always, thank you for watching, have a great day.